Good evening, everyone. Welcome to District 63's Mentor Mondays. My name is Stephen Shaner. I will be your host and Zoom master for the evening. Contest season is coming up fast, and tonight we're going to learn how to run a speech contest, especially in this virtual atmosphere that we find ourselves in all the time. Please welcome our presenter for the evening, Distinguished Toastmaster, past District Director, Kim Santan.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is great to be with you tonight on speech contest training. Now, the last 2 weeks, we've talked very in depth about how to be a great judge, all of the training that needs to go into judging, and we practiced being a judge. So it only felt natural for us to talk about speech contests next. So I'm excited to be able to present to you tonight. And I definitely want this to be some interactive. So I have some questions for you throughout the presentation. I want you to raise your hand, speak up, shout, post the chat. Stephen will let me know if there's anything in the chat you'd like to talk about. So we're going to talk about speech contests. I want to share a little bit of a secret with you. I've never competed in a speech contest. That's okay though. I've been to plenty of speech contests and I have learned a lot about just reading materials and attending speech contests. Now, every once in a while I get this little inkling like, should I compete? Would I even make it past my club? And then I go back to thinking about, what my passion is. And my passion is more about helping people and teaching and learning and training and mentoring. And I'm not a big competitor, but I'm excited to be able to teach you tonight a little bit about speech contest training. We are going to start off with the basics. And some of you have probably heard from me before on this, but Toastmasters does have 5 speech contests that they do recognize. And those are there on your screen: international, humorous, tall tales, evaluation, and table topics. And each district can choose 4 of those to have each year. Each district is required to do the international, but out of the other ones, they can pick and choose. So our district, District 63, has chosen to do the humorous and the evaluations during the fall, which would run from July 1st through December 31st. And then in the spring, we do our international and table topics, and that will run from January 1st through the spring conference, usually sometime in April. We choose not to do a tall tales contest, but that does not mean that you can't, as a club, do a tall tales contest in your club. You can make it an open house. You can make it a fun, friendly competition. You can get several areas together and maybe have a competition between you, but we just don't move it up to the district level. For those that may know or may not know, the hierarchy of speech contests, they all start at the club level. I mean, that is the basic foundation of Toastmasters. We have our individual clubs, and that is where the speech contests start. If you win at the club, you move to your area. If you win at the area, you move to your division and then to the district. For the humorous, evaluation, and table topics, it stops at the district. If you win the district, you are the best of District 63. And you can hold on to that title forever. Now, for the international speech contest, they still start at the club level, but they do go on beyond the district. If you win our district contest, you will submit a video to the region quarterfinals. Then if you pass that, you'll go to the semifinals and then the World Championship of Public Speaking. So those are just some of the basic foundation of speech contests. Now, I want to hear from you. What are some of the benefits of having a speech contest? You can unmute and share.
Practice, practice, practice.
Practice, yes, yes.
Or as Darren would say, stage time, stage time, stage time.
Yes, definitely. Great.
It allows our best speakers to present to the rest of us, and we can hear some of the best speakers that way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mary.
And one of the things that I like is it provides an opportunity for a lot of Toastmasters to step up and take leadership positions in a speech contest.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Dawn.
And also adding on to that, at a club level, you structure the meeting completely different to a regular meeting. So it's a good thing to be doing at a club level.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, for sure.
And
Thank you, Ken.
Also, I think it fulfills a need for some of our members. Some of our members love the contest and the competition, and when they don't have that, we're not feeling that need for them.
Absolutely. You are right, Stacy. I have met several people who will never, ever hold a leadership role, but man, they will join and they will just compete in speech contests. You're absolutely right. Anyone else?
It's also a good time to bring guests that don't have any idea what Toastmasters is about.
Yes.
And as an introduction of where you can go and what you can do, accomplish.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carol. Definitely.
And competition brings out the best in all of us, and sometimes the worst.
Yes, you're right. Absolutely. There are definitely some competitive people out there for sure. Great. So when you attend a speech contest, what are some characteristics that you see that would classify that as a good speech contest?
That it's been well prepared.
Well prepared. Yes.
Structured.
Timely.
Structured and timely.
Yes. It's structured. It's timely. Absolutely.
Fun.
Anyone else?
Kim, I love all of those answers, but for me, in addition to those, is having several people compete.
Mhm.
I can't tell you how often I've gone to a contest where there's like 2 people competing and 15 people working the contest, and love to see more contestants.
Absolutely. Yes.
And having a good contest that all the contestants are happy and comfortable in competing, that we've made it so nice for them that they really enjoy the contest.
Yes. Yes. Great
And
environment is so key. Yes. Thank you, Mary.
and it's a competition. You can tell that every contestant is doing their very possible best.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
And
All
it's
right.
structured so that for the most part, everybody feels like it was fair.
We talked a lot about that in judges training to make sure that we hold a contest that is fair. Yes. All right. So when you have a speech contest, who are some of the main key players in a contest? Just shout them out.
Contestants.
Yes, you need to contestants. Yes, for sure.
Judges.
Judges.
Chief
Yes.
Judge.
Your contest chair. Yeah.
Contest chair. Yep, chief judge, I heard.
Vote counter.
Judge.
Yes, I heard vote counter. And Ken, what did you say?
Tiebreaker judge.
Oh, well, somebody was learning during judges training. Yes, you have to have a tiebreaker judge.
In the new normal, a Zoom master.
Yes, definitely a
Surgeon at
Zoom
arms.
master. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And for our international speech contest these days, a good cameraman or camerawoman to
Yes.
tape the speeches.
Yes, absolutely.
Did we talk about timers?
No, we did not. I was waiting for somebody to say that. Yeah, you got to have some timers. Absolutely.
Audience.
Audience. The more people and the fun you have, that brings out the best in the contestants. Absolutely. All right, well, we're going to talk about some of the key players. We're not going to go in depth with all of them, but we're going to talk about some of the key players that are recognized either in the contest rulebook or in the best practices rulebook, and I will show you those in a little bit. But let's talk about a contestant. You got to have contestants to have a speech contest. And if you read the rule book, there is a list of things that a contestant should or should not be, but we're going to just hit a few high levels. Of course, they have to be a member in good standing. You can't have a guest be in a contest. And the club needs to be in good standing. Now, I say that for those that are notorious for not paying their dues on time. And unfortunately, I do know that our district is sometimes, doesn't get those dues in on time. It's very important that you get your dues to world headquarters by the time the speech contest starts. And if you start the club contest in March, dues are due by April 1st. If that contestant does not have their dues paid and the area contest is in April, they will be disqualified. So it's very important that if you are a club president, club treasurer, you get those dues submitted on time. The club also needs to be in good standing. So that means at least 8 members, according to Toastmasters. If you are in the international speech contest, you have got to complete at least levels 1 and 2 in pathways. Or if you were still on the legacy program, you have to complete 6 in your competent communicator, the first 6 speeches. You cannot be a district officer. I hear that a lot. Well, I'm not going to be a district officer because I just want to compete. I don't want to do anything else. I just want to compete. Or I've heard it the opposite way. I served my year as district officer. I'm done. I just want to compete. So you're not able to be a district officer if you're in a contest. If you are in a contest, you cannot be, teaching an education session. You cannot be a contest chair, any type of event chair at the event in which the contest is held. So if you are holding in our district spring conference, you cannot teach a session, hold a session. You cannot be the contest chair. You can't be the hospitality chair, anything like that if you are competing in the contest. Now, if you happen to lose at the area or division, then you can certainly serve at the district conference. You just can't do 2 things at the same time. And then as a contestant, we talked a lot about this with judges training also, that you have to make your speech original. Please don't go out to YouTube and download a video and copy it and speak on it. You need to make it substantially original, which means 25% or less is devoted to any type of quoting, paraphrases, another person's speech, etc.
Kim, could you talk a little bit about why you can't do those things?
Yes, it definitely, yes. Those sessions at the education sessions at this content on the conferences are key because you don't want to have an unfair advantage. Even though our judges are trained, there still could be some bias and they may see you at that session and go to that session and then maybe vote for you in the contest. So we need to make sure we have a level playing field for all contestants. Thank you, Stacy. So let's talk about the chief judge. I'll give you another secret. This is my favorite role. I love being the chief judge because I don't have to vote. So if you were the chief judge, you are not a voting judge, but you do need to understand and know the rule book. And I have said in prior presentations that you never leave home without your rule book if you are going to a contest. If you're at home, at least make sure you have it downloaded onto your computer or readily accessible. The chief judge is in charge of making sure that they brief the judges, the timers, and the counters prior to the contest. We want to make sure everybody knows exactly what they're doing and how to do it. So you're in charge of making sure that they have that brief prior to the contest. Now, some of you may not know this, but the chief judge selects the secret tiebreaker judge. And do you know what? That tiebreaker judge does not attend the contest briefing. So you need to make sure if you are the chief judge that you know that the tiebreaker judge is somebody that knows what they're doing, has been officially trained, and can take that role and not have to be trained or briefed on it. And then the chief judge will collect the tiebreaker ballot from the judge at the end of the contest and use it if needed when we do the counting. The chief judge is also responsible for collecting the timer's report and looking over it to ensure that the people are within time, the contestants are within their time. They oversee the counting of the ballots. They provide the contest master with the results of that contest, and they preside over any protests that may occur. Any questions on the chief judge? And again, I did not go into all of the eligibility on the judges because we went over that during our prior presentation, but all of the eligibility is either in the rule book or on your ballot.
Is the selecting secret tie-breaking judge a requirement, or it could be either way?
Nope, it is a requirement.
Okay.
We're going to talk about that in just a moment. So then we have our judges. Again, not going to go over the eligibility, but I do want to point out something that's very, very important in this. The only time that you cannot go with the minimum number of judges is at the club level. And that is where it says, unless impractical. So if you are holding an area contest, division, or district, you need to make sure you have the appropriate number of judges. When you get to the division and district contests, that any of your judges, including your chief judge, cannot be a member of the same club as the contestant.
I have a question on that.
Yeah.
So if we have 3 contestants, each from a different area for the division contest,
Mm-hmm.
and we have 1 judge from each area,
Mm-hmm.
does that mean we only need 3 judges because each is from the area? Or do we
Nope,
need?
that is a very good question. You do need to have equal number from the area, so you are correct in that, but you have to have the minimum of 7. So you can have 2, if you have 3 areas, you can have 2 from each area, and then 1 other one, or 1 from each area, and then, what's that, 4 other ones? I have to do my math here. But you definitely have to have a minimum of 7, and you need to have equal number from each area.
And if we don't?
Then you go outside of your area.
Okay. And
That's
it's
the
2
great
minutes,
thing about
2 minutes to contest, and we don't.
Yep, that happens. That happens. I've heard some scrambling the last contest season. So yeah, you just need to make sure you have a plan. When I'm the chief judge, if I see I need 7 voting judges, I always plan for 9, because something is going to happen. Either, they're going to be late because of traffic or technology issues, or they found out they weren't eligible or something. Always have a backup plan. And that is the great thing about having them online, is that you can really invite anyone to be a judge as long as they meet the eligibility. All right, any more questions on judges? This is great. Timers. We talked a little bit about timing earlier. Now, if you are in person, you need to have at least one of the timers has the stopwatch and 1 does the timing device. If you're on Zoom, both timers need to have a stopwatch, but only 1 displays the colors. And it is my recommendation, it's not in the rule book, that you use the colors presented to us by Toastmasters. And there's a reason. You do not want your contestants to say, well, I didn't see that green card, or I didn't see that you held up that yellow mug that looks like yellow. I've been to some contests where they just grab whatever's next to them and try to show it in the camera, and you're like, is that green? Is that yellow? What is that? So I would recommend that you download these screen shots from Toastmasters and use them for colors, and that way there's no question. And then when the chief or the contest master is briefing the contestants, they can also say, we'll be using the virtual screens. This is what they look like, so that the contestants also know what colors and what they look like. Any questions on timers?
Yeah, so Kim, I have a question that's related to this, and we can hold it for later as a general question. Or we can
go right ahead.
Okay, so the question is, and it came about because somebody who's competing is very concerned that they won't see themselves on the screen sufficiently enough to position themselves in the screen. And if you're in a contest and you've got multiple pages, 2 or 3 pages of Zoom, the timer may be on one page and you may be on another. And if you could pin the timer, you could pin you, but there's different ways they can get confused. So their question is, can you also have a verbal cue if you request it?
I do not believe that the verbal cue is written in the rule book.
It's not, but this is for
No.
Zoom rather than in person.
Correct.
I can tell you when I've done it, I'll just hit this, you hit the space bar and it just kind of makes a ding, but it also pop your screen up as somebody speaking. So as a primary, it will pop up for about a half a second with that color up there.
No, there's not to be any audible sounds during a timing. The timer just needs to display the green, the yellow, and the red at the appropriate time. So I would definitely
we have used
recommend
audible
that person.
sounds in the past, and we've had somebody that was sight impaired.
Yeah.
But that was discussed ahead of time, and everybody knew that was going to be happening. So.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Kim, just to piggyback onto that, I like how you have the colors there with the words that match the colors, because there are people who are colorblind. So having green on the green and yellow on the yellow, I think is a really good thing too.
Yes. And if you do, all of this should be discussed during the briefing. So if you do have a colorblind person, you can we can make the green wording a little bit bigger so that they could see it. But yes, no audible sounds, but definitely screen sharing.
And Kim, another question is that Toastmasters International officially has the stoplight timer as well. But you're recommending only these, correct?
We've used those stoplight ones, but they're really hard to see on Zoom, and people have a hard time picking them out. Where if you have the whole screen, green, red, and yellow, they're much more visible. So.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions.
Question for you is, and this came up before, is when do you give the timers report when somebody's disqualified because they went over time?
That's a great question. All you do is you write down on your timers report, and then you give it to the chief judge. The chief judge, during the counting of the ballots, automatically goes in and looks at the timers report and says disqualified, disqualified, or everybody made it. And then when they're counting the ballots, they'll note that. The chief judge will then tell the contest master, we had one disqualification due to timing, period. You don't have to, you don't say the name, you don't say which contestant it was or anything like that.
And that applies to the online too? You wait until the contest, the chief judge is collecting ballots for the timers to turn in?
Yes, that is correct.
Kim, on the other issue that Ken raised, it's something that I've noticed, and I don't know if this happens all the time, but it might help. I noticed if you raise your hand on screen, it also pops you to the top, and that might help. If somebody, you know, for instance, Dean, you were talking about, if somebody raised their hand, it would bring them to the top of the screen. They would at least be first on the screen. That might help people track them as well.
It's my opinion that we need to stick to the timing rules and timing cards. And Dawn, Stephen, Mary, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but we don't want to give anybody any disadvantage. Everybody needs to have a level playing field.
Kim, I like these timing cards, and I think this should be the standard that we use. But I have found that not everyone can display these timing cards on the computer, because either they can't get backgrounds or for whatever reason.
Yep.
Do we specify that timers must be able to display these particular colors on the computers?
That would be definitely my recommendation. I have that problem. I cannot have a background, virtual background behind me. I can't do those snowy mountaintops or my fancy living room like Dawn does, but what I can display these as long as I cover up my camera. So if I turn my camera off, leave my camera on, but just cover it with a piece of tape, these will show.
Yeah.
But yes, I would recommend that if you cannot display virtual backgrounds, that you find a timer that can. Because again, we want the contestants to be able to see that and have the right time.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to do it, because then we would be uniform right across the division, and we'd have a standard instead of, some people might bring a a green cloth or yellow cloth, or it doesn't
Yeah.
look that very well. So I think if we say this is the standard, then I think that would get everyone on the same page.
Yes, I agree. I don't have the authority to make that rule, but that would be definitely my recommendation.
Yeah. Hey,
For
Kim,
sure.
I
Yes.
was using a little Post-it note to cover my camera whenever I was timer, but I kept losing it and it'd fall off. And you can now buy little windows that slide over and cover
Oh,
your
yes.
camera. And they just stick on and they're there. They don't fall off and they work really, really nice. So go out
Where
to
do you get
Amazon.
those from, Stephen?
I got it from Amazon. I got one for my laptop and one for Nancy's. They're really tiny and they're just a little window you can slide over the camera and they work really nice.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Great questions. All right, let's talk about the ballot counters. Now, these are obviously the people that will be counting the judges' ballots. At the club area and division, you need to have 2 with your chief judge. Your chief judge is not counted in that 2. And then at the district contest, we need to have 3. And each counter is given the tally sheet. And we read off the judges' ballots, the counters enter those onto the tally sheet, we add up the score, and that determines first, second, and third place. Now, the question always comes up is, well, how do you do this in Zoom? And it's really at the discretion of the chief judge and how you want to collect the ballots. I've read on the best practices, you can do an email, you can upload it to the chat. Either way, whatever you decide will be discussed at the briefing prior to the contest so that everyone knows. If you are doing it by the chat, I would recommend that you have at least 2 people that can verify that information. So for example, I was the chief judge and Mary was one of my counters. I said to my judges, when you send your results, make sure you copy myself and Mary, because that way there's a second set of eyes when we're reading off the results and I can't fudge them. Okay. And so I would read off, Joe, first place, 3 points. Susie, 2 points. Bo, 1 point. Then I would say, Mary, are you in agreement? She would say yes or no, you got it mixed up. So that just gives another level of accountability when you're counting the ballots. This is the time where the chief judge will check the timing results. And if there is a tie, if the counters end up with a tie, then the chief judge will open up the tiebreaker judge, and the highest ranking person out of those 2 that are tied gets the place. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Recording contests. We are in a world of Zoom right now. And so if you are recording your speech contest, you need to make sure that you have a video release form from your contestants. If you are moving from the district to the region quarterfinals, then you need to make sure that your contestants sign the video release form that is specific to the region quarterfinals. And that basically, you can see it on the screen there, it just releases us to do this information online. And that it's branded by Toastmasters. If you are doing an online contest and recording it, you need to read this statement. And I know that it's a lot, and I can tell you exactly where to find it here in a little bit, but you do need to make this statement at the beginning of your recorded online speech contest. Okay. All that information that I found was on the speech contest rulebook. It's important that if you are holding a contest, you make sure you have the right rulebook. I know I've finally cleaned off my computer and I had rulebooks from like 2016, 2017. Don't use those. Those are outdated. You need to make sure that whatever speech contest season that you're in, you use the right rulebook. And so this is the one that we are currently using for this speech contest cycle. Now, every year, Toastmasters does update the rulebook, and you don't have to go back and reread the entire rulebook to know. They are smart enough, they put little asterisks beside things that have changed. but you definitely need to make sure you're the most current rule book.
Kim, real quick, in
Yep.
the chat, Mary Ann is asking, do we have to record the contest?
You do not have to record the contest. Nope. The
And
only
then-
one that has to be recorded is the district international speech contest, because that one will go on to the region quarterfinals.
And
But
then
no,
Nick is asking, is that recording disclaimer available in the rule book?
it is not in the rule book, but it's in the best practices rule book, and or the best practices manual. I'll show you where to find that here shortly. Well, actually, it's right there. I'll show you where to find it. But this is the online speech contest best practices. And there's so much information in this. I did not want to go through every single piece, but I would definitely recommend that you find it and download it, and I'll show you here where to find it.
I also put it in the chat.
Perfect.
Kim, I have a question too about the recording, because this is a new territory for me. If one of the contestants chooses to record their own speech, does it still require the disclaimer and things of that nature? Because I think that I've seen that happen before, that nobody was actually recording the entire contest. It was just that particular user recording it. But I could see where that would be needed, because you're still going to see people's names and images.
Yes,
potentially.
that is correct. Yes, and if they decide to upload it to YouTube and state that this is their Toastmasters speech contest, I would say you probably do need to read that statement. Dawn,
Perfect.
Anybody else have an opinion on that?
Well, Kim, what I've seen, I'm not talking about the international speech contest at the district level now, but I have seen where contestants at the club area division have asked if they could have their speech recorded. And at the time, it's a judgment call by the chief judge and the contest master whether or not to allow it. Generally, they do allow it, but they also offer opportunities for the other speakers to record as well.
Yep.
As far as that's concerned, I've never seen or heard anyone read a disclaimer for a personal recording. So that's good to know that it's probably good practice just to do it anyway.
I always err on the side
you.
of caution. But
yeah.
Great questions.
Actually, if that happens, it's also a good idea to ask everybody else on that, if it's a club or something on that call, if they're going to be okay, because they're going to be in that recording.
Yep, absolutely. All right, now some of this information I pulled right out of that best practices manual. Just a few things that I want you to know. So in this world of Zoom, you know, you can change your name there. I can change my name to Sally Sue or whatever. But if you are holding a role during the contest, you should put timer Kim Santan, chief judge Kim Santan, or whatever that is, so that everybody knows what role you have during the contest. Except your judges and counters should remain anonymous. Now, when you are on an online contest, if you turn your camera off, some people have a picture of themselves, some people have like a little, whatever you call them, I don't know, I call them emojis, but I don't know if that's the right term, that looks like themselves. A picture is like a cartoon picture of themselves. You need to remove all of that if you are a judge or a counter, and you just need to stay off camera and have a blank screen, and it just says judge. Because we want the contestants to know that we are following the rules and we have appropriate number of judges for that contest, and to make them feel confident that we are running an appropriate contest. But again, turn your camera off and display your name and keep your Zoom box generic.
Kim, also, you also have to do it before you sign on, because if you don't do it before you sign on, when you sign on, your name is going to flash up on the screen.
There you go. I did not know that. That's great. Thank you, Ralston. It is also recommended, it's not required, that if you are a contestant that you not use a virtual background. And you can tell sometimes when people have virtual backgrounds because their ear may go in and out, or their, yeah, there you go, like Dawn's doing. And so it's very distracting to the contestants. But if they do want to use a virtual background, they're allowed to. It's in the rule book, but that is considered a prop and would be followed the rules and regulations in the prop section of the rule book, which basically means you need to make sure you talk about it during briefing and have it ready to go, etc. So during the contestants briefing, if you are doing an online contest, it is recommended that you make sure all of the contestants are the same distance from the camera. So in the online best practices book, it suggests 3 to 5 feet, depending on what is recommended and available for all the contestants. That way, everybody's equal. It is also recommended that you have a solid background. Now, that could be a blank wall, you could hang a sheet, you could, wherever else you have a solid background is. You can use a Zoom or one of those green screens if you want. That just doesn't allow any distractions in the background. If you are a judge, we talked about this a lot the last 2 weeks, you do not judge the quality of the video or sound equipment. Now remember, we're following the judge's ballot and we're following what those different categories are, like we talked about last week. And none of the categories on there say anything about the quality of the video equipment. So you are not to judge based on this quality of the video equipment. If you have a technical issue, your chief judge, contest master, the officials during that contest should always have a backup plan. So you need to have a meeting prior to the contest to say, okay, if my power goes out here in Chattanooga, I'm going to have a backup and Candace is going to be my chief judge. Okay, or Ken, he's going to be the contest master. If there's only like technical problem with one person, like a contestant or a timer or something, we can pause the contest, and that is up to the chief judge to determine what that pause and how long that's going to go during the contest. But always, always, always have a backup plan.
What about the contestants? Sorry.
If the contestants don't show up or they're having a technical issue, then again, it's up to the chief judge to decide how long and what they need to do to just let the contestant, how long does the contestant have to get fixed? Now, if it's like a natural disaster or something like that, those are always extenuating circumstances and will be taken into account. If it's just that they don't know how to use their equipment, might be a little bit different story.
Kim, you just made me think of something here with this technical issues that I haven't even thought of before. Would you recommend having a second timer available for the green, yellow, and red backgrounds just in case the main timer has technical issues during a speech?
Absolutely. That falls into your having a backup plan. Yes. For sure. All right, these are some questions for you. So, is a contestant eligible to compete if he pays the dues to the club treasurer, but the club treasurer does not submit them to world headquarters?
Nope.
Anyone else? I saw Candace's head going no. That is correct. You are not eligible to compete if your dues are not paid to world headquarters. And they have to remain, we talked about that earlier, in good standing throughout the whole contest cycle. So if you have your club contest in February, they have to maintain eligibility if they're competing in the district in April. So Joe, he's a member of 2 clubs. Club A is in District 63. Club B is in District 43. Is Joe eligible to compete in both contests, both area contests, since his clubs are in different districts?
Depends on how fast train A is going.
Yeah. All right.
Sorry. I'm gonna lean towards no.
Okay, I think that was Nick.
I would like it to be yes, because that's my situation actually.
All right, well, let's see. Anybody else? I heard a yes and a no.
I still think it's yes, but I could be wrong.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. Joe is a member of 2 clubs. Club A is in District 63. Club B is in District 43. Is Joe eligible to compete in both area contests since his clubs are in different districts?
I think the answer is yes.
I think it's yes, but ethically, it would probably be no, because that would block somebody else from competing. And if he won, he could only go forward with one.
Okay.
Would that apply the same if the districts are in a different country?
That's a good question.
Question.
That's my situation, actually. It's a natural question myself.
Okay, well, that's a good. All right, well, here's the answer. The answer is no. No contestant, and this is straight from the rule book. No contestant is eligible or can compete in more than one area contest of a given type, even if the 2 areas are in different divisions or districts. Now, the key words in that are of a given type. So Joe could compete in table topics in District 63 and international for District 43 because they are different types of contests. He is not eligible to compete in international in both. And that is straight from the rule book.
Joe could hedge in the club contests, but if he happened to win both club contests, he would have to choose which path to go down, either area A or area B.
Correct.
Right.
As long as they're the same type of contest.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yep. All right, well, if you didn't learn anything, now you learned about that tonight. So what happens if a club does not have a speech contest, but wants to have a member who wants to compete? What happens?
They can send 2 forward. It depending on how many clubs are in the area. I believe it has to be 4 or less, and they can send 2 forward to the area. At that point, it's not being sent forward.
Okay. Anyone else have a thought on that?
The club can use whatever means they want to send contestants to the area.
That is.
But if they want to have a contest, it has to be a Toastmasters contest.
Okay.
You can send, you can not have a contest and send someone forward. If you do have a contest, but you only have one contestant in your club and they can't come, then you can't substitute that person. But yes, you can nominate somebody and send them to represent the club without a contest.
Okay. All right.
And I agree with all of those. And too late.
Sorry. Sorry.
They have to be in time.
That was what Ken was going to say.
Yes.
So they have to be in time. That's what I was going to say.
Yes, we're going to talk about that next.
Okay.
So a club in good standings are permitted to choose whatever method they want to move someone to the area contest. You could even draw straws out of a hat and say, oh, the shortest straw has to go compete. It's up to the club. But if you do hold a club contest, it has to follow the rules of the rule book and the result is final.
I was going to warn a club the other night about this.
Yep.
Because they were going to move forward and have them give their speech. But since they were the only contestant, I didn't want to see them potentially go over or do something to get disqualified.
Yes.
But they already started.
Yep.
Better to let them move forward.
That is correct. If you hold a club contest and your only contestant is disqualified because they went over time at 7:31 or whatever the timing is, that decision is final and that person cannot move on. That's only if you hold a club contest. If you choose straws or you just nominate somebody or somebody steps forward and says, I'd like to go to the area, that is fine.
What's the protocol for informing the, like, how do you let the area contest chair or contest master know that these club contestants are going? I guess you just fill out the normal form, like as if they won a contest, or?
Yes, you could. I mean, it's a little bit more informal at the club level. You can fill out the notification of winners form and send that to your area director, or you could just send them an email and say, you know, Joe is going to be representing this area or club X in area 43's contest.
Okay, thanks.
They also still do have to submit their eligibility form
Yes,
and their speaker bio.
absolutely. Yes. All right, next question. If there are only 2 contestants in a speech contest, the first place contestant is unable to go to the next level, and the second contestant is disqualified. Can you name someone else to move to the next level?
No.
I see some heads shaking no.
No.
No, I don't think you can.
Okay. Does anybody think you can? You are correct. You cannot nominate someone to move to the next level, nor can you take back the disqualified contestant. They're disqualified. That's the final result of that contest. They cannot move on to the next level. So where do you find all this information? First is that you need to go out onto the Toastmasters website under the shop and under contests, and you have all of your information right there. A lot of the information that I found under additional materials. That's where your judges rule books are, or your contest rule book. That is where all your forms are that you can download and use. There's fillable forms now. You can download a whole speech contest kit if you need to. It gives you everything in one nice package. But if all of this information is found out under the shop, you do need to log in as a member to be able to download that. Now, the online speech contest practice was a little more difficult to find. I did just go to my search bar and type online speech contest best practices, and up it came. But if you want to find it a little from the long way, you would go to resources, announcements, online meeting, and best practices. It's listed there with a bunch of information for online meetings. And you can just download that best practices book. Again, there's a lot of information in that manual. So I would definitely recommend that you go to your search bar, find it, and read it prior to having a contest. And that is the end of my presentation. Love to open it up for some more questions or comments.
Yeah, I'll go first, Kim.
Okay.
My question, I already asked Stacy this today, and she may not have seen her email yet or replied. So Stacy, ignore it, the email. The question is, what is the incentive for anyone in any club to be a functionary at the area contest? I should know it, but I can't remember.
Want me to take that one? All right. So, you know, the incentive is, I mean, you learn a lot of new skills. So you're recruiting, you're persuading, you're organizing, you're, you know, working as a team. All of those are great benefits to being a functionary of a speech contest. I may be missing some, so anybody else can speak up.
Quid pro quo.
There you go.
Because if you need a speaker or a functionary for your contest, Ken.
Yep, absolutely.
then somebody is willing to be a functionary for yours.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, Ken, this is where we lost something from the CL manual, because you could get credit for helping with the contest.
Yeah, I looked and couldn't find anything anywhere, so that's why I asked the question.
Yeah, that went away, but I'm hoping TI will bring something like that back. It would be nice.
Yeah.
There are some pathways projects where this would qualify. Like there's leading a team under leadership development or dynamic leadership. So there's that.
That's helpful. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.
Great.
And
Thank you.
Kim, I'll add to that. It comes to the core of the heart of a Toastmaster is supporting others.
Got it.
What about the point system?
Talking
Is there
about
not a point? Yeah.
For incentives, for the incentives we offered this year, we did offer people points that they could earn. Yes,
Right.
Y points that they could earn if they served at a contest. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to find. Thank you.
There you go. Now that's specific to District 63. That's not specific to others outside of our district. So I see a question on the chat just came up. Can the chief judge be and the contest master of the same contest? The answer is no. You can only serve in one role at one time during that contest.
I have one question. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I
Go
saw
ahead. Go ahead.
Maud, Candace, Mike, somebody.
Mike went on mute. Mike, thank you. It's very kind of you. This will be my club's first time using breakout rooms during a contest. So I've read the best practices for that, but I didn't know if anybody here had any lessons learned or any advice that they could share with me for having breakout rooms for the table topics contest.
I do.
I will defer to our tech people. I'm looking at Nick. Dean, people.
What
Go
I
ahead,
like,
Nick.
What I like to, I'll try to keep this simple and not get too nerdy. But I like to create 2 breakout rooms, one called main session, and the other called, contestant room. And you assign everybody to the main session, and then all your contestants except the first contestant to the contestant room. And when you configure the room, there's an option to make it so that people cannot change rooms. And the reason that I think you should have 2 rooms, one being the main session or main room, is that if a contestant were to drop off their Zoom call while they're in the contestant room, they come back into the non-breakout room, which could be where everyone is if you didn't also move them to a big room elsewhere, right? So it's just one little extra bit of protection that is a good practice. It is a bit more complicated, but I see a lot of heads nodding, so maybe it's not that hard.
Oh, it can be, because I think I was just at a contest the other day, and they did develop and put out 2 breakout rooms, but the problem was that when everybody left the breakout room, those vanished. So they had to start and reinitiate those breakout rooms again once everybody left. Now, maybe that was the way they had it configured. I don't know, but that was an issue.
Nick, if you find a contestant in the main room and he or she is not supposed to be there and they're there by error, can you take that person out and put them in another room or take them out of the meeting?
If when you set up the breakout rooms, you checked a box that said, move attendees to their room for them, then that would work.
Okay, so you as a host can move people around as you choose.
Right, if you turn that feature on before you activate all the breakout rooms.
Okay, thanks.
And that's a really good point for those that are either the contest master or the chief judge, to double check the main room to make sure that there are no contestants before you start the evaluation or table topics contest, because they have to leave before they speak, so you can't hear the other speakers. Now, once they're done with their speech, they can stay in the main room just prior to. So some people I have seen on Zoom calls, they have their laptop going and then they have their phone, same Zoom meeting, but different. So you may think you sent them to that breakout room, but they're still hovering over here on their other device. So definitely make sure that everyone is out before you start the table topics or evaluation portion.
And Kim, we were only addressing breakout rooms for the contestants, but you also might want one for the chief judge and ballot counters to go into so that they can do their work as well.
Yes.
Correct.
I had one question about the international speech contest. and that's about the actual speech. I heard somebody told me that you cannot or you should not present your speech prior to the contest. Is that correct, or is that in any on the manuals? Because I read one of them, the very first one you showed, and I didn't see anything about it, but I was told that. So I don't know if I'm wrong when I was told wrong.
Yeah, that's a good
Well,
question. Thanks, Mike.
I think
There
that
is nothing in the rule book that says you can't recycle a speech and do it again. As long as it's substantially original, meets that criteria, it's 25% less of paraphrasing and all that. But if you started a speech and you did it at your club and you want to do it again for a contest, absolutely.
And Kim, he may be addressing the act when you actually get to the world speech contest.
Yes, I think after you just, you can use the same speech, I think, up through the semifinals, but then you have to have an original brand new speech for the finals if you make it to the public speaking finals.
And if you use a speech in the semifinals or in the world championship, you cannot use that speech again in a new cycle.
Yep.
I think people get confused with it because of that word original in there.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I can see that for sure. Good point. All right, we are about 2 minutes for an hour. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it back to our host, Stephen.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment.
Yeah.
I visited a speech contest last week in New York City. I was very surprised. They didn't tell me in advance of the contest, but I was not allowed to turn on video. I got into the room and I had my video on. And as soon as I arrived, they were like, turn off your video, mute your phone, mute your line. And the only two videos that were playing at the time, which I think kind of speaks to something Ken said earlier, the only two videos you could see was the contest chair and the current speaker at the time. Even the contestants that were not currently speaking were not even presenting their video.
They do
That's a best practice for bandwidth issues because they want to get the best quality recording they can if they're recording a speech contest. And if everybody's got their videos going, you can have some bandwidth issues. So.
Well, being a guest to their club, I'll just say I didn't enjoy it. Just saying.
Understandable.
Yeah, a lot of the contestants don't like that either, April. They like to be able to see faces on the camera and see reactions to everyone. So we've had those discussions, but we've also had those complaints that no, if you turn off everything, I can't tell how I'm doing in the speech contest.
And in the beginning, they introduced it as these are the rules of our district. And so it was like in their district, none of the clubs could do it that way, at least the way they presented it in the intro of their contest.
And that's right. I've run into several districts that said they just made that a rule throughout the whole district so that when you went from contest to contest, it would be exactly the same throughout all the contests.
So how come we have to make the judges secret, where if you're in a room together, a ballot counter is going and getting the ballot from the judge's hand that's up in the air?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. That's in the best practices rule book, and I'm not sure why they did it that way. I mean, I can probably
give you some history, Kim.
Yeah.
In the past, I've been a Toastmaster since 1984, and the judges were never secret. Right. And there were some complaints from some of the speakers and people at them that the judges were being influenced by the speakers. I don't really believe that was happening, but in order to just make the conversation go away, it was decided to make the judges, all the judges, secret, so nobody could say, well, the judging was unfair because that candidate went and talked to the judges and that candidate knew those were the judges. So it didn't used to be that way, and because of conversations of the judges could possibly be influenced by speakers or other people, I think the decision was made just to make them secret.
Yes, and that is in the rule book. They should be anonymous and I think that's the running joke, and honestly, because yes, you hold up your ballot if you're in a room and everybody knows. But when I've been chief judge, and we talked about this during judges training, if I'm required to have 7, I always maybe make 11 and have blank ballots so that people really don't know who the judges are. There might be 11 ballots up, but nobody knows. So yes, I think you're right, Carol.
Kim,
Sure.
if the judges didn't turn off their camera, but they didn't put anything except just their name, as if they were just a regular person, in Zoom, you wouldn't really know they were a judge anyway.
Right.
Correct. Yeah. Again, it comes down to in my opinion, it comes down to accountability. If I'm competing and I want to make it to that world championship, I want to make sure that there are 7 people that are actually judging me and not just this old Kim Santan writing down the results. So.
Well, I think that's a good point. One of the things at the small club and at the area contest, we don't have any guests. So if you're there, you're a contestant, a judge, a ballot counter,
Yep.
a timer. If I know who the timers are, you know who's left.
Yep.
So I don't know. I do like that idea, but as a speaker, I would hate it to have no cameras on and just a bunch of blank screens.
Mm-hmm.
But
yep,
that's been the biggest complaint I've heard, Dean. They hate it when it's just a blank screen or it's just somebody's picture there. You can't tell if they're listening or not. You can't see the reactions. So yes, the speakers absolutely hate it.
Yep. But I don't, Stacy, you haven't made any ruling across our district, right? We can have our cameras on.
Absolutely. No, we have not said anything like that because I understand how the speakers feel. Even when I speak at a club, it seems odd if everybody is a blank screen. I like to be able to see people's faces as well. So I know that would throw a contestant off.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially if you're doing the humorous speech.
It does. It really does. Yeah, especially if you're doing the humorous speech.
Yes.
Or if
the contest that I was listening in on was a humorous contest.
Oh.
It was so dry. It was awful. Yeah.
Well, and if you're doing a speech that's an emotional speech and you want that emotion to connect with your audience, you've got to be able to see if there's a reaction coming from them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if somebody's laughing at you and you're talking about an illness or something, then that's not the reaction you want. You want to be able to correct that. So,
yeah,
I agree. And Dory, that starts at the club level and goes all the way up because you can't even practice and hone your speech if you can't see the reactions that you're getting or not.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. Dory is one of those people that I was talking about earlier who wants to compete. She's one of our competition Toastmasters.
Well, and right now I'm just recruiting for judges for Saturday's club meeting.
So there you go.
Anybody's available. I've already got one person who's volunteered. Dean, Stacy.
Well, Dory, why don't you
tell me again?
Put your stuff in the chat so everybody can copy it down, your email and the time and date of the contest.
The time is 7:15 a.m. Saturday morning.
What time?
Briefing is at 7:15 a.m.
Dean says there's a 7:15 a.m. on Saturday.
Eastern or Central?
Yeah.
Not at night, right? You're talking, because there's 2 of them in a day. So we're talking the early one, right? Oh, man.
Is that Eastern or Central?
That's Central.
And I'm putting
all right, put me down.
And I'm putting my email in there.
Send me an email.
Dean, what do you want the wake up call to be?
7:05. I'll be there with a baseball cap. That's it.
If I could, I would deliver coffee.
So Dean, the judge's briefing is at 6:15, by the way.
Yes.
That's why I said it's 7:10. Any earlier.
And then on March 6th is the area contest. So I'll be looking for judges for that too. So
that's great.
That's your club contest, right?
The club is this Saturday, and then my area's contest will be on March 6th.
Okay, just include me
well, this
when you send it out.
Okay, will do.
This has been great. Thank you all for attending. I promise I'm not going to hog all the Monday meetings. I'm going to let somebody else speak, but I will close with just one final comment in that I'm not going to recruit for any more elected positions because the applications are closed, but I am going to start recruiting for area directors. And so if you know of anyone that would like to be an area director, there's a lot of benefits to be an area director. We have a lot of area directors here on the call. Reach out to me. We need area directors all across our district. It's a great opportunity to expand your leadership. And with that, I will turn it over to our host, Stephen.
Great
Thank
job,
you so
Kim.
much, Kim. Great job. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Thank you, Kim.
A lot of great information and great questions, everyone. We had a good turnout and good interaction. So well done, everyone. Let's see, coming up the next few weeks. Kim has agreed to do all of the presentations for the rest of the year. So let her know what you would like her to speak on each Monday. No, I'm just kidding. Let's see, February 8th, next Monday, we are going to have an open discussion about club open houses. On February 15th, the basic understanding of Toastmasters and club coaching. On February 22nd, Kristen Phillips, our club growth director, is doing a presentation. I don't have the title yet. Stay tuned for that. And March 1st, Kim will be back with us talking about district leadership. On March 8th, we're going to do Zoom training. And March 15th, we're going to have videography training on how to do your video and enhance that the best way through Zoom. So some great presentations coming up. Be sure to join us for those. Kim has already talked about district leadership stuff. Does anybody else have anything for the good of the district?
Kim, if you don't mind, I got one question. And it has to do with the numbers for the judges. I heard two different answers to this question, but the tiebreaker judge, is that included in the 5 and the 7 judges, or it's in addition to the 5 and the 7?
The tiebreaker judge is above and beyond your 5 or 7.
Okay, so technically it's 6 and 8.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure I got the math right.
All right, great question. Anything else?
I'll be doing a VPE pathways training February 10th. If your VP should have received an invite with the encouragement to invite their club president or their proposed protege. We'll be going through Base Camp Manager and just learning how to do what VPEs need to do, whether they've done it already or not.
Excellent, Nick. Thanks for doing that. We may want to have you do that again at our spring conference, so I'll be in touch.
Okay.
See.
I'm going on mute now.
Got to be careful who you talk to. You should know that by now.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen.
Yes, go ahead.
In the rule book, the one change that I noticed was significant. If there's 3 people participating, then all 3 have to be announced during the winners section. Used to be you can only announce 2, but now all 3 have to be announced. So all you contest masters, please make note of that.
Yes, good. That's good. Thank you, Marty.
Thanks, Marty.
I also read that in order to participate, you do have to complete your level 2 pathways. Am I right on that?
For the international speech contest. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, or 6 CCs.
Or 6 in the legacy program, but that's only for the international.
Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.